So to
Katie, I'm starting the beta timer
we
too.
get a roll call. I made it last as long as I could.
Okay. Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Bernie Grauer.
Here.
Katie Schwer.
Here.
Auden Schindler.
Here.
Jen Riffle. Mark Kittle.
Here.
Jackie Whitsitt.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to thank Grassroots TV for being here and for broadcasting our meetings live. People can watch tonight's meeting now or online at grassrootstv.org. Our videographer this evening is Katie Finnegan. How Irish is Katie? The mayor's coffee is tomorrow at Starbucks at 8 o'clock. If you come, I will buy your coffee, if you remind me. I'm going to talk about this letter under our comments. So,
Both letters?
I've got the hence.
Okay.
Is there another?
The Verizon.
Okay, got it, yes. So our first item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have questions or want to pull anything off of that consent agenda, or is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented, and I thank Suzanne Wheeler for serving on Bach.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. This is the time when people in the public can talk to us about things that are maybe not on the agenda. And the very first thing, this should be super easy, Chris, is positive comments and gratitude. Do we have anything we want to be grateful about today? Like, it's white, it lays on the ground. Chris?
There's nothing.
If the chamber isn't happy, who will be happy?
Definitely happy about the snow we received, and I'm just gonna say, I went away this weekend and there was snow, and I'm going away for 10 more days. So if there's snow while I'm gone, you can just thank me.
We'll send you away more often.
Very excited to have snow, and anyone who's gotten a chance to go out there, it's pretty awesome.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for being on the spot. Any other public? Yes, Rick. I guess we don't have Mike up at the podium, so just feel free.
We would move it.
Comfortable sitting. Rick Stevens, thank you. Couple things. One, Thursday night the beat talks were really very well done, and Bob Clark and Glenn's wife, excuse me,
Kelly Alford.
and then Dick Durrance were awesome. And it was interesting perspective on just what those guys are doing to be helpful in the community. I've known Bob for quite a while, and he's the kind of person that could really bring a lot of resources to Basalt. The second thing was Bill Coffey's memorial on Friday. It was well attended. Both floors of the chapel in Aspen were full. He was a 40-year veteran of housing in Snowmass and a good friend of mine, and Saturday was his memorial ski day, and he delivered 16 inches of powder up there in Snowmass, and
Yay.
it wasn't going over our heads, but it was very good. And then lastly, just a public service announcement. A group of citizens has organized a candidates meet and greet for February 20th, next Tuesday at the library from 5 to 7. We have received confirmations from all 6 candidates. They'll be there. I've asked them to notice it so that if anybody wants to attend and who is running for council in April, they're more than welcome. So I'm encouraging community members to come on out, and it's a very informal deal. It's not intended to be a panel type thing. It's just a meet and greet. Each candidate will have a few minutes to speak about what they are bringing to the table and what they think, and you'll just have a chance to mingle and see what's going on. So anyway, that's it.
Thanks for doing that, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Bunch of people. So
Watch your foot, watch your foot. Okay, any other public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Mayor and council reports and comments. Happily. Want to talk about your retreat?
I'd love to ask Auden, what's going on with the micro libraries? Library.
Thank you so much for asking
Yes.
about teeny libraries. Well, there's one already in town at the corner of Hookspur Road. So it just, someone did it. So I talked to the library, and we're gonna stock it with some more books. And then we have one in place, and we're waiting for better weather before we figure out where to go. Ryan has been in conversation on this topic with various people. Do you have anything to say on?
Sure, I could add to that I did reach out to the Cypress Meadows HOA to see if they would have interest in having one near the new playground that was installed over in Willits on Linear Park. And I'll wait to hear back from them. They were, they'll have I think their annual meeting's coming up in March, so something they could discuss then and get back to us. And if they are not interested, then we'll go to another neighborhood and see if they might be.
Well, that's what I was leading towards, is what neighborhoods, knowing that Basalt is kind of a three-pronged town. We have Old Town, we have South Side, we have Willits. It would be amazing to have them in those three hubs. And I had a citizen approach me about the interest of that, and her perspective, suggestion, invitation was to place one by Albany Park, that so many people go through that area, similar to what you were describing with Cypress Meadows.
Yep.
Will you get me,
That'd be
just
great.
have her email me so that I can, because we're gonna need citizens to kind of be the person to make sure it's stocked.
Right.
So if you put me in touch, that'd be great.
Sure.
As it is, though, we have one, and it's not in yet. So eventually we'll have three in, hopefully in each part of town.
Okay.
Adopt a tiny library program.
Well, that's what she was interested in, and so that's what I wanted to put it out there. I know that it gets a little sticky with trees and park benches, and but having that collaboration with the town, and there is support for it. So
Good.
yeah.
Nice. Great. Thanks.
Others?
I have one quick comment. Ryan, I talked to Ryan about Picken County has a pretty elaborate way of housing employees, and I said, hey, you should talk to John Peacock and understand that so that we can consider implementing something like that. It's just a variety of different financing approaches, participation from the county, whatever, but we have to figure that out as a community, and just getting that information is a great start. I think some of you are familiar with that whole program, maybe. They've just thought hard about how do you do housing for staff. So we discussed figuring that out, and then at a later meeting we can have a more involved conversation about how we create a similar program.
Is this something the Bach should be involved in? Or is it just town employees you're concerned about?
This was primarily about town employees and that challenge, but eventually it could bleed over into Bach, probably.
Okay. Others? Okay, everything I have is about the Olympics because I think the Olympics are so cool, right? Okay, so first of all, regarding Basalt Olympian, we did get a letter, I guess I got a letter from Vice President Pence, and I just want to read it, okay? As the leader of the United States delegation to the 2018 Olympic Winter Games, I am proud to join the people of Basalt in honoring your community's own Torrin Yater Wallace as a member of the U.S. Olympic team in South Korea. Together, the members of our Olympic team represent the strength of our nation and the destiny of American greatness at home and around the world. I join Americans everywhere in applauding these athletes and cheering them as they reach for their dreams. On behalf of the American people, I want you to know how proud we are of your community for representing America on the world stage. Please know that I will be rooting for Torrin and rallying behind the Team USA as they compete in the Olympic Winter Games in Korea. May God bless the people of Basalt, and God bless a lot of other things, which I will just leave out, but that is awesome. And he has not done it yet, right? He has not done his thing yet? Do you know? I'm looking at you as if, okay.
I looked
don't think
today,
he
and I
has
think
competed
they
yet.
have not competed.
Okay.
He has not competed yet.
Mayor, you didn't read that as written. You didn't pronounce the name of the town.
Basalt? Oh, yeah, I know, I always look at it and go, I know what it sounds like, but. So just on some more Olympic things, I just want to recognize the people from this valley who are representing us at the Olympics. Wiley Maple from Aspen, Siri Hamilton, Aspen, Noah Hoffman, Aspen, Alex Ferreira, Aspen, Torin. Then I can't stop myself from recognizing Red Gerard from Silverthorne, or Goldthorn, I guess, as it's known now, and who has gotten a gold, and Ariel Gold, who's gotten a bronze from Steamboat Springs.
And
then
Kelly Clark.
Right, thank you. And lastly, a friend of many of us, Haley Swarble, is attending the University of Alaska, but used to be at Basalt High School, and I knew her when she was here, and I think she would still admit to knowing me, I'm not positive. But she's a cross-country gal, and she stole the show for the American cross-country skiers in Switzerland, winning 2 individual medals to make history. Combined with a relay bronze she won last winter, let's see, in Soldier Hollow, Utah, her 3 junior world medals are the most for a U.S. Nordic skier in the event's history, male or female. Okay, that's all I have for council comments. Last, okay. The next item we have is the manager's report. Ryan, what do you have?
Oh, a couple different items. So the first is needing a little bit of feedback from you all. It seems to be that this year is the year of franchise agreements. And later in the year, we'll be talking about the Black Hills Energy, which is the natural gas. Tonight, we're talking about cable, but I've also been informed and have been looking through and researching on our Holy Cross franchise, and that is up. And they have asked if we would, basically it was written such that there was a 10-year franchise agreement that with the approval of council could roll into a subsequent 10 years. I have looked at some of our area towns that are also in franchise with Holy Cross, and believe that one of them, in fact, was identical to the one that we have. Essentially, we end up getting 3% of their gross sales that occur here within the town limits, as well as the 1% that we get to use for undergrounding, or we've spent it on helping the school out with the baseball field, climbing wall. So we get to use it for community expenditures. And in looking through it, I did reach out to CML as well. Didn't get a whole lot of feedback from them, but I'm inclined to make a recommendation for you all, but I'm really seeking input to bring back an ordinance to approve a 10-year extension to it. I think it's in good shape, and a lot of the language in there, of course, is standard language where they're operating within our right-of-way and how they have to notify us, put it back as it was, cooperate with other entities to be able to hang equipment off of their poles or underground. So at any rate, I wanted to bring that up to you all and just get that.
And do you need
direction.
some kind of direction, or?
It would be helpful if I could get some direction as to whether we bring back an ordinance to readopt for a 10-year.
Is anybody willing?
Yeah, yes, we should
That's
do
all
it.
I need if you all agree, yeah.
Yep.
Motion from Auden, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, and so if you find out anything in betwixt
I will.
times, okay,
Yes, I
great.
will. A second item for you all, in the snowy weather yesterday morning, the county started their improvements down in the river for the river park. Essentially what they're doing is fixing those features to allow for a sneak on river left, so that people could get through without having to commit to the wave or the hole. And speaking with the engineers, they're attempting to improve the experience out there. Though at high water, there will still, you still have to have advanced skills to be able to navigate through the hole. And we have been talking, and I spoke with you all in the recent past about getting a subcommittee together with county commissioners to talk about future improvements. I checked in with Lisa McDonald, who works for the attorney's office, and we want to get that scheduled very soon. What we've been waiting for is they were doing some outreach to user groups or stakeholders. They've now finished that process, so I think we're at a point now that we can start to set those meetings up. So we will do that. I'll reach out to those of you that we talked to about being on that subcommittee. And I think I had a third item. I think I'll leave it at that for now.
You can always jump back in.
I can always jump back in, yeah. Thanks.
I have a question for Ryan. Given the fact that you're going to need high-level whitewater skills, even going on the sneak-around hole on the left, are we anticipating signage, warning signage?
I think that's been brought up, and we are still in a phase of the construction that we can request that. So that's something that could go up. There are signs now, but of course they're temporary signs. I don't know that there were signs this summer that were up. So that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure I pass that along.
I just want,
Could I make one comment about that? When you come out of Guido's driveway, there's a guardrail there, so people don't go into the road. There's not one at Elk Run Drive, and that worries me. That split rail fence isn't gonna do any good. What do you think, Chief?
Definitely something to look into.
It's always kind of bothered me.
I think we could do guardrail that looks a little better than just the shiny guardrail.
Sure.
You kind of,
Boulders or, whatever.
well, yeah.
okay, let's not, okay, we can
Okay.
deal. Okay, I just wanted to circle back really quick regarding BTOX, and Rick did mention that it went well. It went really well. It was at the Roaring Fork Club, but I wanted to thank especially Chris Matera from the Chamber and Jeff Hasley, who is the general manager at the Roaring Fork Club, who he and his staff, I mean, it kind of takes a staff to put one of these things on, but it was a standing room only event, and it was truly fabulous. So. Okay, items for council discussion. And before we kick this off, I just wanted to thank the Chamber again, Chris Matera of the Chamber, for rallying support and getting a letter going also to Verizon. I saw it on email, and some people have also constantly called me about it as well. So I'll let Ryan take the lead on this one.
Sure. So what you have before you is a draft letter responding to citizen complaints and direction from you all to understand a bit better on their time frame for improving the service in essentially the entire Willits area. And a quick update for you all is, you all know that they came in and they got permission to be able to put that up. They've got to come back for their permitting. So staff did reach out to Comcast, to Verizon to try to get an idea of the timing. And we did receive an email that said in the June to August timeframe, which essentially aligns with our building season. We have not, however, had them. They've inquired with our building official as to what would be needed for building permits, but they haven't come back in. So we do have a little bit more information, but we certainly don't have a commitment or a hard timeline. And I bring that up only because if you look at the last paragraph, I had written a sentence in there that says, it is our understanding that Verizon is pursuing permitting, but that does not provide insight as to the timing of installation. So the timing that we got with regard to this email doesn't seem like a firm commitment. So up to you if we want to leave that in there or modify that language a bit. But it does go back and emphasize in previous paragraphs just the fact that this has been an ongoing issue. And more importantly, in speaking with Chief about it, there's a public safety issue where you can't even dial 911 at certain times in certain areas down there. And so you'd be left without any resources in case of an emergency. And we would like that, first and foremost, to be remedied, but then also to represent our business community and, of course, the citizens that live over in that
So
area.
let me just, I'll get you in just 1 second, Gary, but just to let everyone know that, I mean, this is a huge problem now that this is actually out in the public ear. People will come to me in the grocery store and text me and email me, and it's,
Do you get them?
do I get?
Texts and emails?
I can text, but it's not getting, people are not settling down about this. I think that they are now thinking that maybe something is going to happen because we have this in our hands. So what I had in mind is if we go ahead and send this letter, allow me to sign this letter, is asking Eagle County if they want to sign on as well. The only thing I'm thinking is, if we want to be expeditious, I think maybe we should just send it, now that I think about it, because then they're going to have to go through their gyration. And but I would like to hear your comments on it. And I know most everybody at this table lives in Old Town where there's service, but you know people, and when you drive on the road, you experience it as well, that you can't hold a call up in a good piece of the town of Basalt at all. So, Gary?
I'm totally in support of sending the letter. I'd like to make the letter stronger. I did ask Greg earlier about the fact that, it's public safety that you can't call 911, but fire and police cannot make calls and deal with calls in that area. So I just want to put more into this letter of how serious of a safety issue this is to this community, because, I mean, I don't know, to me it's like, this is just ridiculous that Verizon does. They came in and asked for expedited permits, and we gave them a really fast turnaround on a pretty large pole that they're putting up. So, I mean, I just want to make it stronger. That's all. I totally support it.
Okay, and before we go on any further with our comments or take any action, I would like to open this up for comments, because I'm thinking there might be somebody here who wants to talk. So if you just want to come up to the microphone so we get you picked up on the TV, that would be great. Just state your name and...
Hi, my name's David Panico. I live at 600 Lakeside Drive over in Willits. And I really want to just come before you. I don't know how this process is going to evolve. I know that there's limitations to a governmental body pursuing a corporation, and I'm thinking that if that happens, I'd love to add my voice to whatever process there is, because I have a rather compelling story that really hurt a lot. And I think it could be a strong, somebody who could represent something that isn't just business and money. My wife had the misfortune of being diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and she died last June. And so we were living in Willits for the preceding 8 months, 10 months, having it almost to be impossible to communicate with doctors, family, once or twice 911 because she needed to go to the hospital by ambulance. So there was a lot of personal things that happened to her and to me and to our family, and I think if there needs to be a voice of somebody who suffered injury, personal injury, not the way we think about personal injury, but somebody who really kind of was profoundly affected by lack of service. I'm not after money, although I think I can quantify 40 to 50 hours of arguing with them and trying to get them to provide service and to no avail, and having to go through the process of trying to supposedly figure out what the problem was. And the problem was they are offering service or selling service to people, and they are unable to provide that service, knowingly able to provide that service. I have a good friend who, this is his business. He says they're just basically selling without having enough bandwidth to supply the services they're selling, which I think is fraud. I'm pretty sure that's fraud. If town government can't pursue something on that basis, I've spoken to law firms, and in only a preliminary way, about class action lawsuits. Somebody told me that suing a phone company is about as easy as suing the population of Mars. You know, it's just impossible. So, I guess rather than go into a lot of detail, I just want to say that if somebody has to represent somebody who suffered an injury, I'm here and I've got a story. And if you can shame them into doing something, I'm more than willing to try. And it's funny because it's now extending into the continuation of my life, trying to continue on and form relationships. And let's just say it's really difficult when somebody texts you and wanting a reply, and that text somehow goes out into the universe and circles Salt Lake City and then flies back and is responded to at 4:30 in the morning, and that person calls and says, "What were you doing up at 4:30 in the morning, and who were you with?" So there's the horror of my wife's death and the inconvenience of what's happening in my life now.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming forward, David.
Yeah,
And we might ask you just to leave your contact information.
Already got it.
You did that? Okay.
Yes, I did.
And we are going to do the best we can.
Okay.
From this end.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. The one other thing I would add on this letter is that we copy it to the FCC. Is there a motion or a discussion?
I have a question, just throwing spaghetti against the wall. The possibility of incentivizing the process to expedite. I'm thinking about the carrots and the sticks that we have, and what about an idea of incentivizing if the tower is completed and online by September of 2018, building permit fees will be reduced, or something along those lines? Just putting that out there. What can we
I
do?
don't think that's very much incentive
No.
for a giant corporation. But
They
it's
didn't
still-
care about the costs.
Got it.
You know, I would say, sorry to interrupt, that I don't know if, sometimes money is not as important to them as time. And so if in fact we could just work at a staff level and prioritize and reach out to them through their staff and just let them know that we'll be ready for them and can, expedite for them. And so that's another idea.
Chris, did you want to, I forgot to see if there was other public comment out there.
Sorry, these copies didn't get to you guys sooner.
That was my fault, not Chris's. Just to be clear.
Thanks, Chris. So, is there a motion or a?
Mayor, if you don't mind, I would love to quickly summarize
Oh, sure.
what the chamber found.
Yes.
So this letter is intentionally long to be, kind of to Gary's point, forceful, of direct quotes from our members. And I've never seen our chamber members respond so quickly to a "please, we need feedback" email.
That's awesome.
I mean, my inbox was flooded. It was kind of insane. And just to paint you a picture, while many of us here in Old Town feel like we have great reception and it's a Willits problem, in this process, we learned how much it is actually a full Basalt problem. I think one of my best examples is Free Reign Kitchen, you know, right around the corner here, is losing business because they can't get the messages for reservations. And they look unprofessional, and, you know, there's lost business coming from that standpoint. You have people who are trying to run their business as part of their commute. They're doing the hands-free thing, or they're on RAFTA, and they drop the call. You have people who are business owners who understand the importance of being local, who refuse to go out in Willits when they have a babysitter because they can't contact them, and vice versa if something happens to their child. And then we've already talked about the safety issue, but there's pretty much 7 different facts that I put out there. And one thing I'd also like to point out, as wear my old hat of having worked in the IT world, is this is a bandwidth issue, not just because of the population and the demands that are there, and I try to quantify that for Verizon. Basalt is not 3,800 people. It's Basalt plus Elgibel plus 31,000 people commuting through this stretch of highway, and millions of visitors that happen annually on either end of the valley that are coming here, particularly Aspen people liking to come to shop at Whole Foods. But these are people who are impacted by the lack of coverage, and Verizon, and it's in the packet as well, is a nice big red map of 4G LTE coverage that does not exist here. And our point is not just, please prioritize this tower, but think of the scalability. Part of the problem is the population increase, but it's also the fact that how many people here have only one device that hooks on to Wi-Fi or cellular service? The fact that we have this Internet of Things, and Verizon sees it as a huge potential opportunity for growth and revenue streams for them, is going to hinder us in the long term because we don't have the bandwidth. So not just install the tower, but think 3, 5, 10 years out of what those bandwidth needs are going to be, so we don't find ourselves in this situation 2 years from now. That's the short version of the 6-page letter. But some of the quotes are, the gloves came off with our chamber members, and I hope Verizon feels that. So thank you,
Chris, for all the effort you put into this. It helps. Okay, did we have a motion? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Katie.
So last time we discussed this, I asked the question of, is it just Verizon or is it any? So, I mean, one thing is, the service is bad regardless, it's not just Verizon. So why wouldn't we also contact other providers? And then when we're talking about like trying to collectively influence Verizon, if there's a cell phone company that works, why wouldn't we collectively leave Verizon and just be like, that's our class action, like, you can't provide the service, we're out.
Well, I'm hearing that AT&T is problematic, and I don't know of another carrier that I've heard out there works great. I mean, because, yeah, that would be the answer, is to jump ship. I don't think there's...
I mean, we looked at it in AT&T, and AT&T is just as bad. I mean, and AT&T is bad in other areas, but I like that idea to just send it to both. And, you know, why just focus on Verizon because they were going to potentially put in a tower? It's like, you know, why not?
I actually heard from a citizen who called me, I can't remember his name, who's in the industry of towers, let's say, and he said that it is possible to take on the projects of building towers and then leasing them back to the carriers, and then that would cover Verizon and AT&T and everybody. So, I mean, I think there's more that we can look at, but quite honestly, this is the one we've been fighting. This is the one we approved a tower. This is the one, and yes, maybe, you know, we take on incrementally other issues, but I think we need to get on this one because this is the one where we had a time frame that a clock was supposedly started ticking in the fall and it stopped ticking. So I would like to just move on with this, and then if there are ideas of other things we could do, let's do them.
Yeah, I mean, Gary. Go ahead.
No, I was going to
I was just going to say, there are other ways to influence Verizon, and one is social media and public pressure and using the media. I mean, we're asking them to stop behaving like criminals. And we're a small town in the West, and we ought to use our profile and power, you know? and
Somebody's phone works.
We can do that.
I think that's true. And I mean, we could have this discussion for a long time, but one of the reasons that I had initially brought up a class action suit is not that we're going to get anything, we're not going to get rich, but just to get on the front page of the Denver paper and, I mean, raise the visibility in ways, social media, newspaper, everything, because they're not feeling it at this point, I have to say, from my conversations, and I don't know if anybody else has had a different, yes.
I was just going to make a motion to send the letter.
Let's do it.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, sir.
Staff clarification, should I add a little bit more language into it to emphasize the public safety piece?
Can we just say head nod? Or,
No.
okay,
That was my understanding with that motion.
Okay.
just 'cause of that.
yeah. Great, okay. Okay, a discussion regarding an increase in the age from 18 to 21 for tobacco nicotine products. I guess Bernie and Ryan.
Yeah. Bernie, I'll kick off and then I'll turn it over to you, but a quick update from staff, and I'm glad Chris is still in the audience as well. So as you know, we do have a ballot question going to the voters of Basalt to ask them if they want to raise the tobacco tax. As a result of us putting that on the ballot, we did get a call from the state informing us that we will receive our final payment for the tobacco tax that we receive. I believe it's in February this month. So just by way of putting it on the ballot, they have their power to stop the payments, and that's the interpretation of the state. So we knew that going into it regardless, and I think that's what we were prepared to accept, but nonetheless, thought I'd inform you guys on that. And then tonight's discussion was in complement to that, which would be to raise the age from 18 to 21 and require licensing of the cigarette or tobacco vendors. And so we've had a lot of help along the way and a lot of good partners in the discussion. And Mandy Ivanoff is here from Eagle County, and Eric Brodell is not here tonight, but he is watching us. And he and Chris Matera are going to help with some of the outreach efforts to our vendors, just in leading up to just basically not advocate, but educate on where we are and why we're pursuing this. And so in discussions with Councilman Grauer, we wanted to bring this forward now in advance of the election, and think that staff could bring back an ordinance to you at the next meeting. I think we would be able to pull that off if you all had an interest in just pushing ahead with the increase in sales age. We've in the research, in our discussions, it definitely seems from empirical data that it helps to curb use of minors because of the social circles that they run in, ages. Typically, a beginning smoker of 13 or 14 is not going to be running around with a 21-year-old, but will have friends or extended networks of friends that are in the 18 year and legal buying age. So with that, I'll give it to Bernie, as he's sort of been heading this one and has some more information that he could share.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, and it just makes clear that what we're doing with raising the minimum legal smoking age 21 is a totally separate issue than the ballot issue, which is to raise the price of tobacco products. And we can do this on our own by ordinance at any time. And I would like to suggest that now is a good time to move forward with this. And I'm going to have Mandy speak a little bit from her experience as the health promotion coordinator for Eagle County. But I'll note we got a very strong letter of support from Rob Stein, the superintendent of the Roaring School District, for what Basalt is trying to do. And I'll give this to Pam now so that she can make copies and enter it.
I think we
into-
have.
You have them?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to read a few highlighted sections because he gives us some very useful information and an opinion, an educated opinion based on his position. And he says, first of all, unlike most of the county, most of the country, our local smoking rates are rising by a small percentage, but they're going in the wrong direction. And he says the number one source for tobacco for underage youth is social sources. By increasing the minimum legal sales age to 21, we would significantly decrease the availability for underage youth to use friends as a source of tobacco products. He then goes on to give an actual estimate, and he says, you now have an opportunity to vote on youth tobacco prevention that could cut tobacco use by our youth by an estimated 25%. So that is maybe not as high as we would like, but it's a very significant percentage that we can have as an impact as a local municipality. So finally, he says, I support the town of Basalt in taking the next bold step, protecting our youth's health and promoting public health for all in Colorado. And I'd now like to turn it over to Mandy for a few comments on some of these issues.
Mandy, thanks for coming. Bernie, could you just recap really quick not exactly, paraphrase what the ballot question would say?
The ballot question was to raise the price of a pack of cigarettes by $2 a pack and to increase the price of all tobacco products by 40%.
Okay, just.
And it's different than the Aspen ballot language. That is our unique ballot language.
Thanks, Bernie. Go ahead.
Hello. So Mandy Ivana from Eagle County Public Health and Environment. Great to see you all again. I wanted to share a bit in Eric's stead since he wasn't able to be here. I know the question came up when the ballot question was raised at the work session a month ago, and I've heard it's still kind of popping around about, given the community and the town boundaries, are youth just going to step into unincorporated Eagle County and purchase their tobacco products, and we're not going to see any decrease in initiation or in usage by our youth? So kind of the highlight case study, if you will, that's been done with this work around raising the sale age was in Needham, Massachusetts. So in 2005, Needham, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston, was the first city in the U.S. to increase the sales age for tobacco products. So there are 16 other communities kind of butted up against Needham. It's not an isolated community at all. And it's only about 2 square miles. So that's their town boundaries. In 2005, they increased the sale age. In 2006, before they kind of had all of the implementation, enforcement, and all of those pieces together, their youth tobacco use rate was at smoking rate, was at 13% for their high school students. And it was about 15% in the surrounding communities. So it was on par with what the other youth smoking rates were. 4 years later, after the age increase was fully implemented and enforced, so that's where that licensing piece comes in because that gives teeth to the 21. 4 years later, their smoking rate was 6.7%. That's a 47% decrease, and it was 12.4% in the surrounding communities. So something was going on in Needham, and there are also other factors, of course, that could be at play, but to have that dramatic of an increase, increasing the age did have some assist with that. And I think it also demonstrates that youth, because they're youth, are less likely to leave the town boundaries. They're going to go to the quickest, easiest access, and the more effort they have to put in to getting tobacco products, the less appealing it's going to be. And so I don't think we will see much of that out-migration. So if there are other questions along those lines or anything else about enforcement or licensing that you'd like me to answer, I'd be happy to.
Anyone?
That's good info, thank you.
You're welcome.
So are we looking for a motion?
Please.
I didn't really see.
Make a motion that we direct staff to bring an ordinance back to do tobacco 21.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Bernie.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Appreciate your time.
Next item is first reading of ordinance 2, an ordinance of the town authorizing the execution and delivery of a cable television system franchise agreement in the town of Basalt customer service standards between Comcast of Colorado, Florida, Michigan, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Washington, LLC, and the town of Basalt. Brian Mahoney.
Thank you. So as you recall, we had Ken Fellman join us 2 weeks ago during a work session to talk about the cable franchise. So I think you got some more of the technical side of how we approached and what we got out of the negotiation. And so at this point, we are making it official, bringing to you your first reading. One of the great things that we did during this is team up with our partner towns and agencies, so Snowmass, Pitkin, and Aspen, and collectively, I think we got a really good deal out of it. We will continue with the same percentage of sales as far as the franchise fee goes, but we were able to get some better service ultimately through a grant, a $20,000 grant that'll happen each year, and that'll go towards online PEG channel or broadband capabilities with PEG, so people can stream our meetings, as an example, or other shows that we might have on those channels. We also do have access to 5. We are sitting in a position where we don't have the same infrastructure that they do up Valley. And so there was some language in there that so long as the technical capabilities remain the same, we will more or less have the same services. But that, as the other communities, that mostly dealt with the HD, so being able to go up to those upper channels on your cable network. And then one other item of note in here is currently it's Aspen and Pitkin County charge a fee essentially for 50 cents per month. And Snowmass and Basalt are proposing to do the same. That does end up becoming a pass-through cost. They're legally able to do that, the cable company. But essentially what that money can be used for is capital expense. So as you recall, this year we had some contribution to Grassroots, who films all of our meetings for us, and it was for their server equipment. So now we would have a source to be able to stay up with the technological changes and be able to invest. Things like microphones, upgrading the sound system, and the like are also included in that. So with that, I would just extend the fact that staff does recommend approval of it, and I think we're in a good spot to move forward.
Questions? Motions?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 2, series of 2018 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for February 27th, 2018.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Next item is public hearing and second reading of ordinance 28, an ordinance of the town approving amendments to the approval docs for the Willits Town Center PUD. Susan Phil.
Well, this is the 5th of several discussions on the Willits Town Center PUD, and we have with us today Tim Belinsky representing IND Ventures, representing the developer, and Jody Edwards, the attorney for the developer, and of course we have Annie Glatz with us too. to provide technical support. So what we have outlined today, if you can move to the second slide, we're going to kick off with Ryan Mahoney making a few comments. Oops, I moved too fast there. Ryan making a few comments, followed by having Tim Belinsky from IND Ventures responding and explaining where the developer is at this moment in time. And then I'm going to kind of wrap up the presentation by kind of summarizing some of the key social capital and financial impacts. And then we're going to go to public comment, then have council discussion with staff and the applicant providing information and answering questions, and then hopefully we walk out of here today with a motion to approve this on second reading. And just one technical thing, don't let me forget that I put in front of you a couple minor amendments to the ordinance that you have in front of you. One of them has to do with the RETA language, and it was just to address the fact that this is an assessment. So we want to link it more closely with the benefits to the particular property in Willits Town Center, and to address a more close relationship with Tabor. And then the other one, and I know I'm getting a little bit more detail than I want to, but I just want to make sure that I reference that there's a minor change. We have a commercial depth requirement that we talked about at prior meetings on block 4 and 9, and we allow exceptions to that depth for sidewalks and for parks, which we want, and we didn't carry that language over for block 11, and so that language does it, so it's very technical. So I really didn't want to get into the weeds too much, but I didn't want to forget to make sure that your motion reflects approving these amendments along with your motion. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on a few of the recent discussions that we've had between council staff and the developer, and just to emphasize the fact that, you know, we have been doing some deep dives at a staff level and with the developer, really trying to brainstorm some solutions to get the most out of this, both for the developer and for the public. And I think that we've arrived at a spot that does make sense for us, and something that finds a nice balance. We've heard from you all about having enough commercial that will support not just retail, but also businesses and those that are sort of the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think by keeping some of that commercial, mandating that on those blocks that they're yet to finish out, we really help to create and finish out the urban form that we have in there. So that's a win. And then we did go back after this last meeting and hearing from you all, and added a couple more items to the social capital elements. So in particular, we got 2 additional units of affordable housing. So those are essentially 2-bedroom, 2-bath. What's different about these is they will follow the town affordable housing guidelines for category 2. All of the other ones within Willits have had their own that's contained within the PUD. And so those would go into the last remaining blocks that are there. One of the other things that's associated with that, of course, is parking, and that's always in tight spots trying to figure out where we can park folks. But we also, as part of that, in block 10, where we will be taking or accepting the commercial space that we could use for nonprofit or for whatever we choose, we get 9 parking spaces that would be conveyed to the town. And the benefit of that is not only can we utilize those for the folks that might occupy this new commercial space, but we can also offer parking for the affordable units, and or have flexibility in the future to either lease them to existing occupants of that block 10. And so that's chalk it up to a win, because it's more than what we would need for the affordable housing units. And then the other thing about these buildings that will go in is we will be adopting in short order new sustainability standards with building code, and so they will have to adhere to those. So we'll catch 4, 9, and 11 on those. Block 3 is already obviously coming out of the ground. So things like photovoltaic and building efficiency will be included. But in addition to that, we also negotiated to have 3 additional car charging stations that would be an above and beyond. And so we'll be working with the developer on that as once they come in to find the best location for those. So all in all, I think what we brought back to you today, and thank goodness we had that extra week to go back and do a deep dive and really try to get out of this what we felt from a staff level and from what we heard from you all that we need. Jen, as a clarification, you had asked at the last meeting too about the HOA fees, and those essentially are about $1 a square foot. So assuming that we take the annually.
Okay.
So assuming that we take the this commercial space, which is approximately 1,900 square feet, we would be paying $1,900 a year for that. So pretty reasonable at the end of the day. And what that is one final element to highlight is we had been talking about getting that commercial space, which was 1,800 square feet. I believe it was contemplated prior. We'll take it as is, and so it's actually larger than that. It's closer to 1,900 square feet, so we get a little extra room out of it. So, so with that, I'll turn it over to Susan to fill in the rest as far as the benefits to us and talk a little bit about RETA.
Sure. Actually, we were going to follow up with Tim, and then I was going to circle back. So,
thanks for out there. Thank you, Ann. I think, fifth meeting, we want to really make sure that we've been able to vet this. I agree with you, Ryan. It was really good to have that extra week. Oh, the bye week.
Mike.
Okay. I'll try a little harder. And my voice is kind of shot, so that probably doesn't help.
Too much singing today?
Olympic anthems. What we heard from you was, try a little harder on affordable housing. Let's see what we can do, and we absolutely got something out of that. I think that was good. Bernie, I'm recalling that you really wanted to protect that balance between residential and commercial, which is where all our heads were kind of in those first couple meetings, and to really look for that. But I also remember meeting with you before we went into this process and having that discussion that, Basalt doesn't make the market. Basalt's got to respond to it. Fortunately, we have a market here. We just need to capture it. Katie, green space, tightening it up. I like your comment about it's not just bikes and babies, but looking for other things. And then also protecting, I think it was really your influence of protecting the commercial space that was otherwise called for on Block 8 out on the highway that we didn't really know what to do with, and to say, let's not give it up, let's find something else that can work within the project, which we had of its vacant space. And so, Jen, in terms of your adage of let's find ways for things to get lit up and find ways to get vacant spaces occupied, I think that was a good connection point from there to there. Gary, your focus on greening the space and making it more and more bike friendly was helpful. Reed Street right out of the gate was the one that you wanted to stamp as a permanent item and not make it optional, and I think we've accomplished that here. Mark, your comment, if it doesn't have an occupant in it or it isn't built, it's not going to generate sales taxes. It really resonated with us too, so all that was really helpful for forming the plan. And Jackie, not to leave you out, but the safety and traffic area of Harris Street wasn't even on our radar. I'm there every day. Maybe I'm just too immune to it because my office is 100 feet away. But to work on enhancements there is going to be an important step, and staff's working on that. I hope that through this process you've also heard from us that Willits is at a tipping point. It really is. We've got to get it done before other things down the road start to surface. And it's also at a tipping point in terms of just the retail market in total. But I think we've been responsive. I think this solution, which has taken a fair amount of time, it's been an appropriate amount of time, and created, you know, kind of that educational component, because it has been complex, I get that. And even though it's complex, it's been boiled down to a few items right now. They're the yellow items up on the
Right
chart
there.
that I think we can focus on and really see that those have been kind of the handful of things that really are going to drive this. It's not through all of this, since actually my memo to Susan was dated March 17th, so it's been a while that we've been working through this. It hasn't really generated, and I look for it as much as anybody, any kind of public opposition or community pushback. And I think, you know, that's a good test for all of us to see out there. And then I think the last point to make is that the staff has worked with us as an applicant team, and they've endorsed this. I think we really are there in terms of feeling like it's a pretty good balance of important topics. So with that, move over to Susan, and thank you for your time through all of this, and staff's time as well.
So, you know, just kind of bring us up to speed. We had several meetings, and we had a lot of council comment, and then at the January meeting, we presented the table that looked like this, which had the 11 kind of social capital items in here. And at the meeting, the council had a lot of discussion and ended up directing us to go back and see what more we could do in terms of the affordable housing and social capital, and that's reflecting in the yellow, which, you know, Tim and Ryan have summarized, and I don't want to go into the weeds on these items, but just a couple things. One is that with the benefits that we worked out with the developer, we did add 8,000 square feet to the land use program, and I didn't want to miss that point. But the next, what I really kind of wanted to highlight is kind of the estimated new economic impact from the benefits that we're seeing from the proposal. And what you looked at the last meeting was this $2,144,930 in terms of what we thought the benefits of these additional social capital items were. So if you remember the last meeting, we talked about the RETA 2, and this is, you know, the program where the money goes on the RETA 2, which now goes to the developer to recoup expenses that they've already spent, will go to us after the first sale. That's in summary, a summarization of what it does. And then the affordable housing, in the original application, they were going to exchange that for the 1,200 square foot core and shell. And under the new program, we get the 3-bedroom unit, which we want a 3-bedroom unit because it really helps in our recruitment programs for the town employees. But 2, we get this additional commercial space, and we get it now, which has a benefit of having that space be here now instead of after it's built. And as Ryan pointed out, it's about 1,950 square feet. So that is a net increase. We also have our parkland dedication fees, and what we did is these additional 74 units that we're allowing with the PUD amendment will be charged our impact fees. East Valley Road traffic calming, the developer has to make a contribution of $200,000. An additional green fee, we upped the amount of fee per unit that the developer has to pay. So we increased it from $200 a unit to $250, and then the larger units, which we actually reduced, so it's not, we reduced that, but it's a net increase of over $6,000. Now that was how we left it at the last meeting. Now we've added these 3 new items. One is the affordable housing, the 2 units that they are going to provide. We estimated that at about $510,000, the electric car charging at $30,000, and the garage parking spaces. So now we're talking about 2.8 million. So we're talking about a net increase from where we left at the last meeting to this meeting, about $690,000. The other thing, I just want to kind of summarize some of the social capital items that we have with the PUD amendment. The construction of Reed Street Park, which before was an option and now is a requirement. At the last meeting, we added the additional park and streetscape enhancements in front of Takaw. We have the safety improvements at Harris Street and East Valley Road. Again, the conveyance of the 3-bedroom unit, immediate acquisition of the commercial space in Block 10, and getting the two-bedroom housing unit, and also the last one being the 3 charging stations. So, in your ordinance, I put the changes, I marked the changes in your margin about where they are, so I won't go into the details on those, but it's kind of more or less the summary of the amendments, and we're all here to answer questions.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and do the public hearing first. So this is a public hearing opened at 7:09. Is there anyone in the public who has a comment regarding this application? Diane.
Diana Elliott, 81 Lewis Lane, Eagle County. I live right across from this development. The only thing I want to actually address, of course, is always the traffic component, and I want to make sure that, if the tree farm comes in, you guys are always talking about how much traffic it's going to generate on Highway 82. Well, when I look at this, I want to make sure that this doesn't generate a lot of traffic on Willets Lane. And from what I see, just having the 2 additional affordable housing units and stuff, I don't think is going to impact it that much. I would not want to go overboard on adding more, affordable housing units or any more units than what they've already have come up with, because I really don't want to see the increase of traffic on Willets Lane, because it is still very much used by young moms with kids crossing the street to go over to the area on their bikes. Everybody goes over to Maku Yogurt and to Sure Thing Burger, and it's really very, very busy in the summer. So I would not want to see any more increase in what these guys have proposed tonight. I kind of like what they're doing. I do agree with affordable housing, just don't go overboard, and let's not go high rise on that and make it a tunnel going down Willets Lane. Okay?
Thanks, Diana.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and go to council for comments, questions. Jen.
I want to thank staff. Susan, thank you so much for making it very clear what the changes have been throughout this entire process. It's very helpful to have those notations. And to piggyback on Diane's points, I do have a clarification. For the additional 8,000 square feet, is that for additional units, so increasing from 174, or it's just square footage being put to,
correct,
but not to exceed the, what was the maximum size, 2,500 square feet? Or
do you want me to answer? We are not increasing the number of dwelling units. The free market that they're getting with the amendment stays at the 74 units, and then there's 2 additional affordable housing units being added. So that's the cap on that. And then the floor area is capped. Most of the units are capped at 1,800 square feet, and then we're allowing only 7 units in block 11 to be slightly increased, and I believe 5 of them are at 2,250, and the other 2 are about 2,500 square feet. So only 7. The original request came in for 18.
okay, thank you, Susan. And then on that, is there an addition, so what there is remaining to build out for residential units, is it 174 total or just 74?
They have a remaining 100 that haven't been built yet,
Okay.
and then they have the 74 units that were being granted by this amendment. And just a clarification, Block 3 takes up 49 of those units, the
Okay.
one that's being...
That's under construction
Yeah.
right now, okay. Okay. And then another question or a comment is regarding affordable housing and the 2 units. Thank you so much for making that happen, digging deep, coming up with that. As a committee member of Bach and as well, I'm trying to think, Meredith Carroll of the Aspen Times, she wrote an article yesterday about what this valley really needs. And same thing from what the study, the town of Basalt had in 2016 or 15, it stated that we don't need more rentals, we need more ownership, affordable Category 2 ownership. And so I'd like to put it out there that I'd rather see this as an ownership than a rental. And then I also recognize that it's a little bit of a sticky wicket because looking at what the town does own, there are some other units that we own that maybe aren't the greatest. They're fair investments, but the town is at this point of owning more than we can internally manage. And that's just been a big struggle as far as how do we do that. So I want to make Judy's life easier because she wears so many hats, and making this as a ownership rather than a rental is the means to that end.
Could I respond to that just really quickly? So we did talk about that, and we left flexibility in there for it to be ownership or rental, depending upon what the building they're contained in. And so it would be perhaps a little bit of the tail wagging the dog if we forced those as ownership into what is otherwise a rental building. It makes it more difficult because you're having to essentially condominiumize 2 small little pieces. I don't disagree with you that we need more ownership. I just, at this point in time, they're not certain how they're going to be comprising those last 3 blocks, and I'll let Tim speak to that, but at least in our discussions, that's why we left that flexibility for ownership or the rental. So just.
And Tim, thanks for hearing me and hearing what the town and what the demographics and what studies are showing is that we need more ownership and less rental. I know rental has many amazing benefits from many perspectives, but ownership is really where we need to go. So thanks for keeping that in mind.
Assuming that the affordable housing needs are following along with the free market needs, it would work itself out. In other words, when we develop a building, if we see that it has more potential because there's more of a demand overall for sale product, then that's also where that affordable housing unit would flow right in. So the market may tell us that pretty well.
Anything else? And then final, where are we at with the chillers and stacks? What was the 2? Are those?
So same condition applies that if they locate them down on the ground floor, they got that bump in square footage area. So there's that incentive for them to put them down as opposed to up on the.
But what was that direct ratio? I don't remember that being.
It was 2,000 square feet for each block. Do I have that right? 2,000 square feet for each block to locate them down on the ground floor.
Got it. Okay. And that would be residential or commercial or?
Yes, either or.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, my interest is, of course, the financial vitality of the town and its sales tax flow, which is what our town mostly operates on, and that's why I've always stressed the importance of keeping as much commercial and as retail and not darkening it to residential, which you have a hard time getting back. That said, that's not the only value, and I certainly appreciate the value of increasing our affordable housing opportunities for residents and the clean electric generation for automobiles. So I would say, even though we're giving up 8,000 square feet of additional development plus a little extra on the chillers, overall we've reached a pretty good mean, a pretty good median, happy median of responding to market conditions which are not in your control, and that is the complete disruption of retail by online marketing, and an ongoing, very substantial investment and very substantial and important project to the economic vitality of Basalt. So I support this final version of the plan.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion. Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 28, series of 2017, with the change to condition number 22 and change to condition number 8 as indicated in the materials.
Second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, just one comment I didn't get in before Bernie. Staff, thank you for working hard on this, and it was a lot of work, and getting to a point, listening to council and getting us to a point where we could agree on this. And then applicants, thank you for your forbearance. It was a long process. And Tim in particular, you brought to this a quality of behavior where you were, you know, you could have gotten annoyed over this long process. But you didn't. And you didn't, and you were great.
He didn't show it.
Yeah. You were gracious, and you made modifications, and you came in respectfully to people. And that's a model for how we ought to engage with each other. And I think council was similarly well-behaved, but I just have been impressed by you in particular in this process, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Jody?
I don't want to delay anybody getting to go watch the Olympics, but I need to correct the record very quickly on a couple of items that were said in the initial comments regarding the RITA. I want the record to be very clear on that. Briefly, Susan was just talking a little quick, and she said we need to address the relationship with Tabor. We want to avoid any relationship with Tabor, and I think we're doing that with this language. We're not tying the two together, we're keeping them apart. Second thing had to do with the assignment of the right to receive income from the RITA 2, and what was said was that it was after the first sale, and that's correct as to buildings that have already been built that the developer still owns, not as to buildings that have not yet been built.
Good.
And it's a big difference financially. It's a huge difference for the benefit of the town. So I just wanted to
And that's why I
correct.
said general, because I knew I was.
You were moving quick.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Jody. And I too will thank the staff for doing all the heavy lifting, for council, every single person on council being really engaged in this process. And it was started out so complicated and got to be so clear. And that was a staff deal, and thanks to you guys as well. So, do we have a motion? We do. Yes. And a second? All in favor? Aye.
Who's the second? Pam, who's the second?
Mark.
Oh, Mark, that's right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Olympics, go,
Olympics.
go.
Good luck.
Torn is next week, by the way.
What? Oh, really? Oh, good.
It's a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Are we there? Oh my gosh.
We don't
How did we do that?
I know.
Double check.
Uh-huh.
Go
Hey, so
ahead.
you saw the invite?
Thanks, Jody, for the correction. I knew when I was saying it.
You want to just kind of strategize a little bit on some of that stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And, yeah, just